Hello everyone, this is part 17 of What If Naruto and Hinata Had a Kid, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Konoha was a busy and bustling city of several thousand. It was always crowded and always loud when the sun was out, but when the sun fell and the town grew quiet, it was almost as if all Konoha inhabitants had left the city. At night the town shut down completely. The lights went off save for a very few street lamps whose only purpose was to light the dark roads so its travelers would not ts. After all, they were a ninja village with many ninjas patrolling the streets at all hours of the day, so Konoha saw no reason to spend its money on streets lamps. The result of this was a spectacular summer night sky of black velvet encrusted with diamonds of stars. On a clear night, such as tonight, Hinata often found herself sitting on the balcony of her bedroom in her reading chair, simply staring at the night sky. At night her daughter would fall asleep and silence would engulf the large apartment they shared. On nights she was alone, she would stare up into the endless sky for hours on end. She would stare into the sky, letting her thoughts often get as endless and thick as the black above her. She stared wistfully back at the sky twinkling down at her. Sometimes Hinata would make wishes on the bright stars and simple prayers to bring back her husband home safely, or wishes for Yumi to grow up with a happy life. On nights she saw shooting stars, she would close her eyes to wish and pray. She missed him. She missed his presence. She missed waking up next to him. She missed his smile, his warm eyes. She missed him so much it would hurt if she thought about it too long. Tonight Hinata sat in her reading chair in her long white nightgown. Her hair was down, covering her back, with small strands being blown in the light summer breeze. In her hands she had a picture frame of a very young brunette girl and a young handsome blonde boy smiling at each other lovingly. They sat in a small black booth, obviously squashed together on one side of the booth. His blue eyes were bright and alive even in an old photograph. Even now, years later, looking at his smile would make her smile just as she did when she was a love-struck little girl. She held the picture frame to her chest as she often did to Yumi as a newborn, the way all women hold those things most precious to them. When her eyes caught sight of a shooting star, she closed them and began to wish the one wish she always prayed would be filled. Hinata had never been one to be called lazy. She had never been known to slack off, the mispractice, or even take a day off from her everyday and sometimes stressful routine. She had been raised a ninja, trained by the most elite to become the most elite. Never had she ever felt so useless in her entire life, and that was seriously saying something when she grew up with the likes of Neji and Hanabi. For the first few days Kiba had shown up at her apartment and almost had a fit when he would find her cleaning or cooking or anything that did not involve her lying in bed. She went along with him, putting her back to bed and insisting he do things for her because that is what he promised, but she found she got bored quickly when she wasn't doing something, and she wasn't the type to sit quietly for no reason. When she was young and found herself in this situation, she would either garden or find someone to train with just to pass the time. When sitting quietly in the bed doing nothing all day began to get to her, she would simply resume what she had been doing, only to be promptly stopped by her current guardian. Hinata even tried to make the excuse she could not see the little TV from the bed, but Kiba fixed that and found a way to place it at the foot of her bed instead and bought her a remote control for it. He would bring her food in bed when he came by and leave some food for lunch or snacks she may want by her bed while he was absent. If he was on a mission, he would often send Shino to do it, and though Shino was often nicer to her than Kiba was, Hinata found even Shino was meticulous of following the doctor's orders. She also found out Shino could cook very well. She got excited when Shino came by because it meant a gourmet meal was in store for her. When he did come by, they wouldn't really talk to each other because Shino has never been the talkative type, but they would enjoy each other's company. He would watch TV with her or tell her about news outside her apartment prison. When neither of her boys could come by, Ino would stop by, always with the latest town gossip. Sometimes it was about people Hinata didn't even know, but she acted very interested all the same. One day Ino came by with Sakura and the girls stayed for hours just talking. Hinata began to feel like she was one of the girls again. She was sad when they had to go, but Sakura had promised to come by more often or as much as her free time would allow. And then she would be left alone again. She quickly learned she didn't like being alone. She had never really been alone before. Growing up, there was always someone home. On missions, she was always with a team member of some sort, be it her entire team or only two of them, but she had never really been alone in her life unless she really tried to be alone. Being alone without a choice in the matter was something she was quickly getting tired of. While Hinata sat alone munching on a pile of cookies and ice cream she had gotten from her freezer, dressed in nothing but a nightshirt and her hair not ready for company, the door flew open and she screamed. She screamed and then choked on her cookie and began to hack very unladylike. Kiba was at her side patting on her back while someone else stood in the doorway looking very confused. Once she could breathe again, she took a deep breath and rounded on Kiba, who looked down at her with worried eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked her gently. Upset she had been seen in her pajamas and looking like she just rolled out of bed, stuffing her face, and with her third trimester hormones in full swing, Hinata frowned darkly. "Kiba, I know I gave you a key, but you can't just come in whenever you want." She folded her arms over her chest, closing the blankets tight around her frame. Despite her anger, she couldn't keep the furious blush from coming from her cheeks down her N. "When Naruto comes back, you won't need me here anymore." Kiba offered, putting something on the bed, but Hinata ignored her surroundings. "But until then, I have my word to keep up." For a brief moment, Hinata cursed the stupid ninja moral code. "Still, this is just as much my house as it is his. What if I was changing?" Just the thought of it made her squirm uncomfortably. Kiba was like a brother to her, a brother she didn't want to expose herself to. "You don't strike me as the type to change in the middle of a room, Hinata." He smiled at her, obviously not fazed by her mood swings anymore, and for some reason this irritated her. Her face flushed and she opened her mouth to say something else, but he stopped her. "Before you start telling me of how much you change in the middle of your room, I advise you to stop doing that for some time." "I didn't, Kiba." Hinata's mood went too irritated and embarrassed to just plain embarrassed. As nice as the boy could be on a blue moon, it seemed there was a rough side that could never be softened. "I have to go on a mission again, and I really don't think I should leave you alone anymore." "You never leave me alone. Shino or Ino will come by, and Sakura's back in town so she can come too." She offered, watching move around her, gathering the pile of dirty dishes. "You supposed to stay in bed and you obviously don't." "Yes, I do," she argued. "Where did you get the ice cream?" Kiba asked, and then pointed at a pile of folded laundry on the kitchen table. "And who did the laundry? Just because I'm bedridden does not mean I have to live in filth." Hinata answered back, crossing her arms around her chest tighter than before. "Anyways," Kiba continued, ignoring that fact, "Hanabi offered to come and stay with you while I'm gone. The doctor says you can go into labor any day now, and I would feel a lot more comfortable if." "Hanabi." Hinata repeated her sister's name, not really listening to anything Kiba might have said after that. She looked at the door where Hanabi stood, rigid but wide-eyed. The younger girl looked a little confused and even a bit scared, reminding Hinata somewhat of a kitten in a new home. What was Hanabi doing here? Did she offer to come? Did Kiba ask her? Did he beg her? Did he threaten her? Did her father send her as a spy? Kiba was still talking while he was gathering several dishes Hinata has used throughout the day, but he was being completely ignored now by both women in the room. Without realizing it, Hinata began to crawl out of bed, wrapping the large blanket around her. She stood in the middle of the room, and Hanabi stood by the door, still looking unsure if she should come in or not. Suddenly Hinata smiled, a smile only a sister could smile, and laughed and hiccuped on sob. Her eyes began to pour out tears, and she ran to her sister with open arms, who for the first time in a very long time returned a very tight, loving embrace to her older sister. The two women hugged tightly for a long moment. One still wearing her ninja garment sans weapon attire, the other dressed only in a nightshirt and blanket. Once Hinata felt she cried enough tears into Hanabi's hair, she let go and the two girls began to laugh. "Why are you crying?" Hanabi asked with a sweet smile on her face. "I don't know," Hinata confessed, because really she didn't. Hanabi was here. Her sister, her family was here, in here with her. The family she had been thrown out of, the family who had all out disowned her, was here. Hanabi, who was her greatest rival growing up, the girl who outshined Hinata in every single thing they did as sisters, was standing in her apartment, happy to see her. "What? Hinata took a breath. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Hanabi shut the door behind her. She sat her suitcase by the door gently and slipped of her shoes. It was as if Hinata hadn't seen her in years. She watched and sent USD the way she moved. Watching to see if there were any changes, watching to see if something in Hanabi had changed and she missed it. A few days ago I heard Kiba telling Sakura about how he was leaving on a mission for a while and asked her to help out. Hanabi began walking to the kitchen where Kiba was putting on tea. Sakura said she couldn't because they were understaffed at the hospital. I asked Kiba if I could help. Help? Hinata repeated. You're close, aren't you? Hanabi said, looking down at Hinata's very large stomach, which despite the blankets was still very obvious. Yes, Hinata said, smiling. Very. But how did you? Does father know? Yes. Hanabi answered, simply taking two mismatched cups from the cabinet. He does. Of course, I couldn't leave for so long without him knowing. And he's okay with it. Hinata was finding this very hard to understand, much less believe. Her father said it was okay for Hanabi to come here and stay. Her father, the same man who essentially kicked her out of her own home and took away all her financial funds, was okay with his prodigy here. I don't, Hinata started, but Kiba butt in. Regardless, Hanabi offered to help you while I'm gone. So let her do what needs to be done, okay? Stop trying to do anything, you're supposed to be resting and laying down. Hanabi, Hinata said, looking at her sister, ignoring the scolding she was getting. Really? Hinata gave her sister a pleading look, the look that asked for the truth from her sister. Hanabi saw her look and returned it with a soft one. Really? Hanabi said, sitting at the table, handing Hinata a cup. I want to help you. There was a silence between them and Hinata reached out for her sister's hand. She grabbed it tightly in her own and smiled. Hanabi gave her a half smile in return, but the softest eyes Hinata had ever seen on the hard-shelled girl. So who's hungry? Kiba asked, breaking the silence between them. After they had eaten and Kiba made his departure, saying he had to prepare for his mission with Shino and Ino, the two Hyuga sisters were left alone. Something that had not happened since they were children, and both seemed very aware of it. They were quiet, and oftentimes when someone said something and they would laugh, it was forced laughter. They may have been sisters, but they were both forced to face the fact that they were still very much strangers. So, Hanabi said while they watched television. How have you been? Pregnant. Hinata answered, and both girls laughed. Besides that, lonely, Hinata said, and her sister nodded. I was in the Hokage office the other day, Hanabi started. I overheard her say something about getting a report from Sasuke's team. What? Hinata straightened up. Naruto was in Sasuke's team. Why didn't anyone tell her about this? I don't know what the report said exactly, but I heard something about a mission complete. Are they coming home? Hinata asked hopefully. I think so, it's a mission complete, right? Any idea when? When was this? It was a few days ago, so it might be a few more days till he gets back. A few more days, Hinata repeated with a heavy sigh and slumped back in the bed. How long has it been? Almost 2 months. Hinata whined. I know he's a ninja, I was a ninja too, but it's just hard. Hanabi nodded but didn't really have anything to add to it. A few more moments of silence between them with the television as their shared source of entertainment. Hinata couldn't hold it in any more. She never told anyone of the fight her and Naruto had before he left. She never told anyone what she heard him say. She had kept it in for 2 months while she slept alone in their apartment. For 2 months it ate at her and depressed. It made her cry at night when she would look at the picture of their honeymoon. We had a fight before he left, Hinata said suddenly, and Hanabi turned, giving her full attention to her sister. I heard him say something to Sasuke and I got really upset at him. What did he say? Hanabi asked. I heard him say, her tea suddenly began to close up. She had to swallow a large gulp before continuing. I heard him say he thought marrying me was the right thing to do. Right thing? Hanabi asked, not really understanding what was getting her sister so emotional. Sasuke had asked if he wanted to and he said it had been the right thing. I asked him if it was true and he didn't understand what I was talking about. Do you think that's what he really meant? Hinata shook her head, swallowing that constant lump in her tea. I don't know. Her eyesight started to get blurry. I don't know, and I never got to really ask. I just started yelling at him and then, I fainted and woke up in the hospital. He was already gone when I woke up. I never got to say goodbye. She took another shaky breath, but this time she couldn't stop the tears from pouring down her face. I didn't get to tell him to come home to me. I haven't heard a word in 2 months from him. I never got to tell him I was sorry. I never got to tell him anything, and now it's been 2 months and, she choked up and started to bawl into her hands. Hinata, Hanabi said, putting a hand on her sister's arm. You're talking about him as if he's SD. He's on a mission, and he hasn't said word because it was an S-class mission, right? Hinata nodded. S-class missions mean no contact until the mission is complete. It doesn't mean anything else. But, the things I said to him. People say things they don't mean when they're upset all the time. I'm sure Naruto knows that too, and after all he loves you. Hinata lifted her eyes in surprise to her sister. Kiba was one thing, but Hanabi. What was going on? I've never seen anyone look at something with more love than when I see Naruto look at you. Really? Hinata asked after a few seconds of silence. Really? So you two had a fight? You're not the first married couple who's ever had a fight, Hinata. You should hear Neji and Ten fight. They're not married, and I swear I think Ten's going to S him sometimes. Hinata laughed and sniffled, drying her tears. When Naruto comes home, I bet he's going to forget all about your fight and just be happy to see you. Hinata thought about this. Last time when he came home, he snuck up on her and they made love till the sun rose. She didn't think it was physically possible to repeat that, but she could imagine him really happy to see her and her whale of a body holding his unborn child. Is it a girl or a boy? Hanabi asked, changing the subject. I asked not to know. Hinata dried her tears. Why not? Because I want to be surprised. Naruto said he didn't want to know either if I wasn't going to know because he doesn't think he could keep it a secret. Do you have names picked out? A few. If it's a boy, we're going to name him after Naruto's father, and if it's a girl, I get to pick it. What did you pick? A few, but nothing really seems right. If it is a girl, I want to see her before I pick the name. I think if I see her, the name will just. Hinata stopped talking, her hand going to her stomach. Is something wrong? Hanabi asked, sitting up on her knees. Suddenly Hinata smiled, grabbing her sister's hand, placing it on her large stomach. He's got strong kicks, Hinata said, smiling at her sister's expression. It was priceless. Never had Hinata seen Hanabi look so awed and fascinated at something. He's going to be a great ninja, Hanabi said, smiling, and Hinata laughed. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Hanabi stayed with Hinata for a full week. She did the laundry and the cleaning. She made Hinata's meals and did the grocery shopping. Hinata had no idea what had happened to Hanabi while she was away, but it was wonderful to have her around. It seemed now they were acting like real sisters. They talked a lot, and when they didn't talk, it was a silence that didn't need to be filled with words. Hinata told Hanabi a lot about what had happened between her and Naruto. She told her of her fears and secret worries. She told her how Naruto was so afraid about the Kyuubi and how they had long serious discussions about it. And at night when they had the girl talk, Hinata even told her sister about her honeymoon. In turn, Hanabi confided in her sister about her own wishes about finding someone, but she didn't think it would be possible being the new heiress. This would end their conversations because Hinata didn't really want to talk about her father. She didn't know where she stood with him at all, and she was sure Hanabi wouldn't know either. If her father had something to say to her, he would seek her out to say it, but she never got a word from him, so it was safe to assume the worst. One day at the end of the week, Hinata had slept in late. When she woke up, it is afternoon and she was alone. Confused but hungry, Hinata got out of bed to get something to eat. Hanabi must have gone to the store or to laundry. She went to the fridge and saw several large containers. She wondered what those were, seeing as they weren't there the day before. She spotted some leftover food from the night before and went down to get it. Her large belly prevented her from going very far, so she was forced to get creative with her bending and reaching. While Hinata was having trouble bending to get to the bottom of the fridge, the door opened. Hinata wondered why no one bothered to knock any more before hiding behind the refrigerator door. Hinata, Hanabi called, carrying a package of some kind. Yes, Hinata called back from the fridge. Hanabi found her in the kitchen and placed the package on the table. Did you just get up? Yes. Hinata blushed. Wow. Okay, well, get dressed, we're going to have company. Company. Hinata repeated, stepping out from the fridge. Yep, here, this is for you. I guessed your size really, but it should fit. My size. Hurry, go get dressed, they'll be here really soon. What? Go. Hanabi pushed her out of the kitchen with the package, and finding no room to argue, Hinata went to the bathroom. What did Hanabi mean, her size? She looked back down at the package. There was a name on it, but it wasn't a name she recognized. A store maybe. But what store? She didn't think Hanabi was one for shopping. She placed the package on the floor and opened it with a gasp along with it. Inside the package was a baby blue and white dress. As Hinata pulled it out, she saw it was a maternity dress, but perhaps one of the nicest maternity dresses she had ever seen. Why would Hanabi get this for her? She had never been the type to get gifts at all. Hinata changed quickly and admired herself in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, Hinata actually felt pretty. She wished Naruto was here to see her in it. Would he like it as much as she did? She combed her hair and made herself presentable to whoever her company was. Back outside, Hinata saw Hanabi put the containers that were in the fridge on the table. She saw some other things in shopping bags, such as plates, cups, napkins, a cake. What is all this? Hinata asked, coming into the kitchen. Oh good, it fits. I thought I pegged you right. Oh, all this. This is your baby shower. My, what? Baby shower? You have one when you have a baby, right? Well yes, but, did you plan all this? Hinata asked, gawking at the food and then her sister. Hanabi laughed, turning back to the food in the containers. No, she said, laughing again. Sakura and Ino planned it. They brought everything over last night when you were in the shower and this morning when you were asleep. I had no idea you could sleep that hard. The dress then. At this, Hanabi smiled strangely at her. A few days ago I went back home to get some things. I ran into father and he asked me about you. He gave me the money and asked me to get you something you would like. That dress is from father. It's something you like, not something you need. Father, Hinata repeated, touching the dress. She wanted to cry. She wanted to run back to the mansion and wrap her arms around him. So he didn't hate her. He didn't hate her and he missed her. He wondered how she was, meaning he was worried about her. And he paid for the dress. No wonder it was so beautiful, it was probably the most expensive dress in that store. Hinata was thinking about leaving and going to see her father when the door knocked and without waiting for a reply opened. Ino, Sakura, and Tenten barged in. All three ladies with several gifts in hand. Surprise. Oh my gosh, you look beautiful. Wow, you're huge. All four girls hugged and laughed with each other. They touched Hinata's stomach, and when the baby kicked at all the commotion, they squealed with laughter. Before long, Hanabi had all the food ready and the drink, and the girls settled in for a long afternoon with some long-awaited girl time. Ino talked about the gossip in town, and everyone was anxious to know. But just like before, Hinata wasn't completely sure who everyone in Ino's stories were, but at least this time it looked like Hanabi was in the same boat. Sakura told him about the chaos at the hospital and her own gossip. Sakura's gossip was usually better because even though it may be about people Hinata knew nothing about, it was usually about doctors sleeping with nurses or patients, and that in itself was tantalizing gossip. Tenten informed him about her and Neji and Lee's new love interest. Everyone choked on their food on this one. They never thought they would meet anyone who could understand or put up with Lee. Hinata wondered when she would meet her, but didn't feel too bad when Tenten mentioned she had yet to meet her, and Neji believed her to be an imaginary friend. After they talked, ate, and gossiped, it was time for gifts. Hinata wanted to cry with each gift she opened. The girls explained how the gifts were from everyone, but only girls were allowed at a baby shower, so the boys passed on the gifts. It was everything from baby bottles, bibs, clothes, blankets, and even diapers. She even got a card from Neji which had a slip of paper in it with a furniture store label. That's where the crib is, on hold for you. Tenten explained. What? Hinata asked, shocked. Neji got you a crib? Well, I picked it out, but he paid for it. They have it on hold for you. You can get it when you want, maybe when Naruto gets back you can get it together. Oh my gosh, Hinata said, her eyes beginning to well up. Oh Hinata, don't cry. Ino said. You're going to make us all cry. Hinata laughed and the girls joined. Aside from her husband away and being cooped up in her apartment, Hinata was having so much fun she didn't want it to end. Her friends were around her and she even had a new connection with her sister she never had before. Her father had forgiven her and all her friends had gone out of their way to get her things for the baby even though she had barely seen any of them. It seemed as if Hinata's life was finally beginning to change out of its train wreck through hell into something brighter and better. She guessed the saying was true, when you hit rock bottom the only way out is up. That night Hanabi did her best to put things away but the room was so filled with presents and baby stuff she ended up sleeping in the same bed with Hinata. Hinata said she really didn't mind but Hanabi felt she was imposing in some way. But seeing as Naruto wasn't home Hinata assured her sister it was okay. The two girls talked late into the night like they always did. They talked about the shower and how much fun they had. Hanabi told Hinata she had no idea how fun her friends were. Hinata asked if she could go see their father tomorrow and Hanabi said she'd be happy to take her. The two girls fell asleep after midnight but they weren't asleep for long before a loud impatient knock woke them up. Hanabi was out of bed first and went to the door. In her groggy sleep Hinata heard whispered voices but she couldn't make them out. She then felt someone lightly touching her. Hinata, Hanabi said shaking her arm. Hinata get up Sasuke's at the door. Sasuke, Hinata said sitting straight up. She almost jumped out of bed and in less than a second was at the door. The hall light showed the dark figure of Sasuke and her entire body went into alert. SS Sasuke. Her voice was shaking. Hinata, he said in a S tone. I have some bad news. She swallowed. Her palms went ice cold, her legs began to grow numb. What kind of bad news? She said, her voice shaking dangerously. On the mission Naruto. Oh my god, Hinata whispered, too afraid to hear the rest but forcing herself to. He didn't rendezvous with us. We waited for 2 days but he never came. He's on a missing nin alert, Hinata. Hinata had fallen to the floor. Her tears gushed out of her eyes but she didn't make a sound. She pulled at her hair and made a strange squeaking sound in the back of her tea. How could this happen? Why would this happen? Everything was going so well. Everything was coming together. The baby could be born any day now and he had to be there. He had to be there. How could this? Why would this? No. Hinata screamed and sobbed. No, that's not true, she said, holding her ears. Hinata, Hanabi said at her side. Hinata, calm down, it's not good for the baby. No. Naruto. No. He can't be. No. 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 She cried and sobbed so hard it was getting hard to breathe. This couldn't be true. Naruto could be gone like that. Naruto couldn't be missing. No. This wasn't true. She looked up at Sasuke, who, just like Sasuke always did, was showing no emotions. He had no sympathetic gaze on her, the pregnant wife of his best friend. He said no kind or sympathetic words. He merely looked at Hinata as she screamed and cried, and when Hinata stopped sobbing loudly for a moment he spoke. The Hokage is sending a team this morning. I am the captain leading the team. I was asked to come tell you first before we leave. Why? Hinata asked. Because you are the wife and only living family Naruto has. She wasn't asking why he was telling her, she was asking why this happened, but when he said those words Hinata cried again. She cried for a long time but surprisingly Sasuke never left. He stood there in the doorway until Hinata had somewhat stopped crying and started making small whimpers and hiccups. He helped Hanabi take her to her bed and helped her in. Hanabi left to get Hinata some water and still Sasuke never left. Why are you still here? Aren't you supposed to be looking for him? She asked. Tears were starting to reform in her eyes. When he didn't say anything and it was apparent he was not going to leave, she asked him something she had wanted to ask for a very long time. Do you hate me? She asked, whipping the tears from her face. Do you hate me because he married me? Do you hate me because he got me pregnant and married me? No, Sasuke said. But Hinata didn't know what he was saying no to. No what? I don't hate you. You don't. Naruto always does things for the good of others. Not because he wants to but often because he feels the need to do it and he talks himself into wanting to. What do you mean? I didn't want Naruto to marry you because he felt he needed to. I wanted him to marry you because he wanted to. Hinata stared up at the dark-haired man with more confusion in her pained face than she ever had before. She always considered Sasuke an enigma, but this was just ridiculous. I'll find Naruto, Hinata, I'll find him and I'll bring him home to his baby girl. Thank you, Sasuke, Hinata said, taking his hand and squeezing it, but then stopped. Baby girl, she asked again. Naruto told me. Naruto knew. You didn't. Well, it's never been like him to really wait on such important stuff like that. Hanabi came back with her water and Sasuke said goodbye to both of them. When he left, Hinata tried to realize her baby was not just an it anymore but a baby girl. She tried to remember the names she had picked out for a girl, but she had no luck. All she could think about was how she was due any day now and her husband was missing. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.